you to clean behind the toilet. Is that dirty?
Yes.
When you think of yourself, what do you see? Garbage?
Oh, yes.
You weren't anything. I really liked that scene.
Me too.
In an era of OnlyFans and seeking arrangements, this kind of thing is pretty common, where people, cultivate and set up these, arrangements, that would probably make the Marquis de Sade blush a little bit and be like, oh God, are you serious? You're gonna do that with that? I don't know about that. I'm the guy that eats shit recreationally. Despite, my expectations kind of rising and falling as I was watching it, this movie fucking works. And there isn't a lot about it that I really will gripe about. The choices that are made are, I would say, appropriate, but there's aspects of this heightened reality going on where you're just confounded, where you're like, wait, what? Like, is this whole thing part of the performance between these two people? Like, how many layers in are we? It's like, it's BDSM meets Inception. At what point are we in the dream? At what point are we in the fantasy? When is something actually real happening? And all the way up to the final frame, this movie really just kind of holds you. And it makes you, as the audience member, feel like you are trapped in a dynamic very similar to these two characters. You're trapped, you aren't in control, but you have to submit to it nonetheless.
Why are you doing it?
Because God's children are not for sale.
Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, and that is Chuck, and we're going to be your Dom Daddies for the next 75 minutes. This is episode 15, and we've got a really interesting one for you this week, folks. Chuck and I weren't exactly champing at the bit for a fifth installment in the Insidious franchise, so we've returned to the plentiful world of VOD rentals to review a smart, little kinky actors showcase called Sanctuary. Before that, though, we're going to talk about all the film news of the week, we're going to discuss what else we've been watching in the watch list, and we'll send you packing with our mentionables. You're going to find timestamps to jump around the episode in the description below. Go ahead and subscribe if you like what you see, and rate us on the podcast service of your choice if you like what you hear. But that's the business end of the show. Chuck, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, it's been, kind of a light week. I didn't watch too much. I was really busy, at work and with life and whatnot. The 4th of July obviously happened. That cut into time. And let me tell you, if you're going to go to a 4th of July parade, or you're going to hold one, there better be fucking candy there, or my millennial entitlement will start to come out. Because what we heard a lot this week, and I'll just do a quick report. My local AMC does not have air conditioning. So the joke is that now it's just, M theaters, because the A and the C are gone. Because for weeks now, people have been going to movies. Luckily, I haven't had this issue because I don't wind up in theater 3. But in theater 3, there is no AC. So people sweat bullets and they die. And they hate it. One person saw Avatar there apparently during it was in the winter, so there should have been heat blowing, and he said he froze to death in there. And then he said he went to a movie recently, I forget which one, and then he was dying. He was just he was soaked through when he walked out of the theater. And the management there They're looking for a new manager. There's a job listing on Indeed for Minot, North Dakota. If you want to manage my local AMC, maybe I should just do that, but then I might wind up like that poor guy.
That's so odd.
Yeah.
Is that theater haunted or something? Why is it specifically just one theater?
It might be the mall's problem more so, because there's other businesses in the mall that have also lost their AC. So I think that's the culprit. It's Dakota Hills Mall or whatever, the Dakota Square Mall. All these dumb mall names the North Dakotans come up with. They make you just want to die, and just give up on life, and just throw aside your vocations. Because that's what wunderkind Xavier Dolan, the French-Canadian filmmaker, he has been declaring that art is meaningless and he'd much rather just raise a family in this chaotic world that we live in. But what do you make of this little announcement from him?
Yeah, this is sort of interesting. I remember when this guy was like the new hot shit on the scene, like at Cannes Film Festival when he was like 18 years old, and people, he like wrote his first movie and starred in it and produced it and all that. And he was like the cool guy who would come out of your mouth if you were a film buff, if you wanted to seem like you knew what you were talking about. And I personally, I've never seen a movie of his, but it's interesting that and this will play into his reasoning, because he's really externalized this problem in the past year, because you put up the quote there, the latest quote that he gave in 2023, where he essentially blames everyone else for his problems. He's basically like, nobody sees my movies. It's, everybody else's fault. Like, why should I make movies when nobody's seeing them? But he gave another interview about a year ago where he was completely level-headed on the subject, where he said a very similar thing. And I'm gonna read it here. He said to the Montreal Journal, "I don't want to do this job anymore. The world has changed drastically. And me, in that world, I no longer feel necessary to tell the stories that I want to tell. I want to take time to be with family and friends. I want to shoot commercials. I want to build myself a house in the country. And I don't say that in a sad way at all," is what he said.
Yeah.
And he's completely done a 180 on that, that reasoning in the past year. So I don't know. What do you think is going on there?
It's hard to say, because, that quote, it really just makes it seem like he's just like, hey, I'm just reaching, he's my age, he's reaching his nesting stage, and if you're just toiling away in obscurity and the only people who like you are the festival set, who see your films, because I've seen Mommy. That's the only Xavier Dolan joint I've ever seen, because, Todd at the Farm just looked weird. All of his movies are just weird, but I wish he wasn't so quick to give up, because just a few months ago, you're hearing from the Titan director, and her just basically being like, art isn't dead, you bitches. Like, why are you acting like, such pansy asses? Make your art. Who gives a fuck? And she was coming at it from a place of, oh, people can't handle art anymore. So, and maybe people are saying we should just stop making art for that reason. He's going at it from, I don't have enough eyeballs, so it's not worth it. But, how many, different important, people in any artistic field or medium, are important despite the fact that they're obscure. Why can't he be content with being himself, the luminary that he is? He might not be getting a lot of money from Netflix, for streaming residuals, but he's made fucking movies. You know what I mean? Yeah. He has a lot to be proud of. I don't know if I would be, I don't know. Something must have happened in his life personally. He got dumped and he couldn't nest. His nesting urge couldn't be fulfilled anymore. So now he's single, bitter, and angry, and he's lashing out at the people who are the most encouraging and interested in him, which is cinema fans, and not, blockbuster people. What is the most popular thing this guy has ever acted in, let alone made?
Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing is, I think he must be at least a little obsessed with becoming famous. And that's why he's not content with being the indie guy that's only really known in Canada and France and not really anywhere else, but because he has done these acting roles in like big movies. He was in It Chapter 2.
That's right.
He was in Boy Erased. He was in Bad Times at the El Royale. So
Really?
He's done a lot of
Who was
big
he in
acting
that?
stuff. I think he was just one of Chris Hemsworth cultists, and
Wow. Okay.
so he's definitely, that makes me think that he wants to break out, like he wants to be famous, but he hasn't had the chance to because of the movies he's made, or because these performances he's giving really aren't notable. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle of these movies with bigger stars and more interesting performances.
And that's kind of a tough pill to swallow if you have some ego and you've been led to believe that you're something truly special and unique within the scene, within the industry. But he's just making the wrong kinds of movies if he wants to be globally famous. Like when you look at famous European actors, like even like Vincent Cassel, he's still he does his Eurotrash, but he was in Hollywood shit. Like he actually had to do and actually be the guy in the Hollywood shit. So I don't know, he's just not being offered the right roles, or he's not seeking out like roles that would help people get to know him. Because I don't know, like be content with being Eurotrash. Be content with being obscure if that's what you are. And I don't know, maybe I'm being a little unfair to him, because at the same time, like we know a thing or two about toiling away in obscurity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm very happy that we're getting like averaging 50 views a video lately, versus like the 10 to 15 we used to, draw in. And so whatever the algorithm likes about us, it's marginal, but I'll take it. Eventually, the rubber hits the road, and you gotta, figure out what will make you happy. So hopefully he finds what makes him happy. Because on the flip side of this, our news today is very themed. Tom Cruise never wants to stop making Mission Impossible movies. He wants to do these till he is pickled, jarred, and like put in the cellar.
Yeah, this is a very big disappointment in my eyes, because we were led to believe that Dead Reckoning Parts 1 and 2 are going to be the big finale of this franchise, the 2-part movie event, and it's all bullshit.
It's all bullshit. We're getting Mission Impossible movies forever. Until, Scientology collapses under the weight of David Miscavige, and then he loses his sponsor, as it were, with for his larger global plans to take over. So like what purpose will these movies serve when this man is 80? What is he going to be contributing? Is he going to allow himself to go all Jim Phelps and become the bad guy of his own series? That could be interesting.
That could be, yeah. And that would probably be the way to go, honestly, because, let me be clear here. I am totally down for Tom Cruise making movies into his 80s, but, let them, you're already rich, you're already famous. Take the more interesting route with your career. Go back to making like smaller films, more interesting films, reflecting on your life type films. Do Magnolia type stuff, like the stuff he was doing in Magnolia. You don't need to keep doing Mission Impossible films into your 80s.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just like, you can already see too, like his age, because there was a time there where Tom Cruise was sort of holding back the gushing dam of his age, but he really can't anymore. Like he is starting to show, like, and you can see the CGI makeup that they're doing in the trailers and stuff. Yeah. Like, if you go watch the Dead Reckoning trailer and just like pause it when there's a frame of Tom Cruise's, face in the center of the shot, and you can see like they're erasing the crow's feet, and they're erasing the forehead lines, and they're getting rid of his like neck,
his gobbler
skin, his gobbler. Yeah. And so, it's, it's already starting to happen. And this is a big disappointment in my eyes.
Because that's the thing. Like, what was the last normal movie this guy has made.
Oh God.
That wasn't a tentpole, wasn't a franchise, wasn't in, like Steven Spielberg wasn't involved in some way. Like
I'm probably wrong about this. There is probably something more recent, but the first thing that comes to mind is Tropic Thunder, because that was like, that was just like a one-off comedy movie. I mean, it is a big movie, but yeah, it would be. I guess it would be that.
It was a novelty to see him show up in that movie in that role because because I was watching some highlight reel of his career on YouTube for some reason, and Born on the 4th of July came up, and God, we haven't even seen that cruise since then. He gave up on trying to win an Oscar, like after a certain point, and it's just been full bore into just making blockbuster movies. Like I guess like maybe one could argue that Night and Day is a quote unquote normal movie, but I don't know. I still think it's the Cruisian mania just radiates off of even that one. So yeah, like he needs to dial it back. Like after a certain point, Harrison Ford, until he was drug out of it, was an action movie retirement. Like he was doing he was being a cranky anchor on a morning show in a rom-com. He was just an elder statesman to boost the credibility of a rom-com. So I understand him wanting to avoid that, but it will get rather comical watching him stand on trains and fight another man with a salt and pepper, hairdo. Oofta.
Well, the thing, like, on a more logistical note, like, what do you do? Because they're still doing the 2-part, Dead Reckoning movies. So once you finish with this 2-part movie, what do you do at that point? You can't go back to making like single one-off movies. Like, this is the same problem that Spider-Verse is going to run into, I think. Once their 2-parters done, their number 2 and number 3, it's like, what do you do at that point? Like, what film series out there has ever done that, where they've done like a 2-part movie and then just been like, okay, what do you do next? Go to a 3-part movie? Or like, I just don't understand what the logic is there without this being the finale.
It's the same problem that Fast and the Furious is running into. Like, they're looking at like what the industry is like. They're all just trying to one up each other. So it's like, oh, special duology to end. No, it's not enough. We need a full-on trilogy to complete the Fast, saga story. But even then, those movies will be made until the end of time as well. That's just where this is going. The one time, one very obvious example where it like really fucking didn't work was with The Matrix. They gave us the first movie, they gave us a 2-parter conclusion, and then after far too long they came back with another one that no one wanted or needed and didn't advance anything narratively significant. There's a reason why that like episode reviewing that is still our lowest rated thing we've ever put on YouTube, because no one gave a shit. That's like how irrelevant that was. And you run the risk of that here, because you get us all built up, you get us caring that the end is here, and then you're just going to keep on, but we're still here, there's still some slop at the bottom of the bucket, bring your plate, let's throw it on there. And that's not going to work for too much longer, I don't think.
Yeah.
Moving on to the watch list. You reviewed the final season of Jack Ryan. So this is 3 or 4 seasons for the full run?
4 seasons total.
4
yep.
Seasons. And
and this,
does this one go more ahead. Like a Clear and Present Danger, like where he's like in Washington getting the screws put to him by congressmen, or is there actually something espionage happening?
This is mostly more the same. He's still out in the field, he's still, going on the actual like operator missions and stuff. Wendell Pierce has definitely gone into more of that role of being, back at the office or being the man in the ear type thing. But yeah, this, right now there are 4 out of the 6 episodes out of this. There's still 2 more episodes to go, but so far, I mean, this show has always been decent. It's never really been like incredibly amazing. but it is good. And the plot the last season I really liked. That was the season where they they were trying to make real the Russian war game from the Cold War. They were actually going to try and like pull off this crazy plot called March to the Rhine, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I talked about that last year because the turnaround on this season was crazy. This season has premiered less than a year after the last season did, and so they've done a really crazy turnaround. And this season's more like generic, I guess. Like the plot is basically like, what if a terrorist organization and the drug cartel teamed up? You know, like that's pretty much like what the plot is. And so it's definitely more generic, but with that plot comes Ding Chavez. They're bringing in Rainbow into it, and I think they're pretty much doing it solely for like fan service because they're like, fuck it, you know, this is the last season. Let's just get, you know, people want Sam Fisher, people want Ding Chavez, you know, like let's do it, you know.
So
type
are we
thing.
getting
And
a full-on Clancy verse at Amazon? Are they
think
doing
so.
it?
I think, yeah. I know they're doing a spin-off they're doing a Ding Chavez spin-off. I don't know if it's going to be a Rainbow Six show.
It fucking just better be called Rainbow Six, and John Clark better be there because he's the real team. He's the leader of Rainbow 6. Mm-hmm. He has to be there.
Yeah, well, it's weird because, you know, they did the Without Remorse movie with Michael B. Jordan.
That's true.
As John Clark. But they haven't tied any of these things together yet. And so you wonder if that's where they're going to end this series. They're going to, I don't know if Michael B. Jordan's going to show up at the end of this or something, but yeah, so Ding Chavez shows up in this, and that's kind of cool. I mean, it's just cool seeing that character, you know, kind of show up, and he's played here by Michael Pena, and that's a very interesting casting choice in my opinion, because you have this sort of slightly chubby, like mid-40s guy playing Ding Chavez. So, but he does a good job. He's you know, he's pretty scary in the role. I think I like Michael Pena when he's in his serious mode. I think he's like insufferable when he's in comedy movies, like the Ant-Man movies he was so bad in and stuff. But
End of Watch,
yeah,
he was pretty fit for that kind of character.
Yeah, End of Watch and The Martian. He was in The Martian for a bit, and like $1 Million Baby. So he's good when he wants to be, and yeah, he's good in this. And I mean I've recommended every season of this show, and I would still recommend it because it's a fun watch. It never gets like too you know, insane. It never is like transcendently amazing, but it's never like outright bad at the same time. And it's always nice seeing, I mean, every scene that Wendell Pierce shows up in is just incredible. Like your ears perk up, and you're just like, every single scene that guy is in is amazing, because he's always like giving that, you know, he's doing the same thing that he did in The Wire in this, where he's doing the bunk shtick, and it's awesome. And he's playing
Greer, right?
Yeah, James Greer.
James Earl Jones's character. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, because this is kind of what I call it, like a dad show. You know, like this like Prime really has my parents like nailed as far as like what the content that they have, because like this is a show they watch. I need to get back into it. I unfortunately dropped off after like halfway through season 2 because I listened to Chapo's Trap House talk about this show, and they poisoned my perceptions of it with the politics, you know, because like their Marxist critiques of the imperialism, like it's like, oh, this is just propaganda for American imperialism. But I need to get back into it just because it is veering into Rainbow Six territory, and that's where Clancy really got cooking in those books. Yeah. So I'm now that I know that there's an end in sight, I have a lot more incentive to be committed to watching it. Because I did pull the trigger on something new. I'm a big fat sucker for anything adjacent to the because I don't know. Let me break it down this way. If you grow up watching 24 and The West Wing, the lineage, the coaching tree from like Sorkin and the people who did 24, they all went on to do their other things. And there's one lady who apparently touched both worlds, because she worked on The West Wing and she worked on 24's successor, Homeland. And now she has a new show, on Netflix and I guess with the BBC, called The Diplomat, about with Kerry Russell and what's that dude's name who plays her husband?
Rufus Sewell.
Rufus Sewell. And they're playing this like awful DC couple. These careerists who really only got married for the sake of it. And they're both like career diplomats. They're all just like her husband's a climber. She's just trying to do the job. And through happenstance and like bizarre, like inside, Washington bullshit, she's elevated from being the ambassador to Afghanistan to the ambassador to the UK. Because they've lost an ambassador, and then a terrorist attack happens, and we need to massage it. We need to figure, and that's where she gets thrust into it. It's very interesting. What makes it work though is the fact that it doesn't really lean into TV bullshit. When people are in a scene talking, there's no music. There's no score running underneath it. There's no like padding for transition shots. It's like, I don't know. It was economical, and I was taken aback by that because you just don't expect it. You're just people just talk. They connive, they manipulate, and you're like left wondering exactly like where it's all gonna go. Like what is the real end game for some of the different scenarios going on. I'm only halfway through the season, but I'm into it, and I'm probably gonna finish it. Because like one angle is that she and her husband are getting divorced and they're keeping it a secret for professional reasons. Mm-hmm. And then the other complicating factor is the reason for her appointment is because they're trying to see if she's a good person to replace the VP, who they're pushing out the door for scandal reasons. Mm-hmm. And her husband knows this and she doesn't. Mm-hmm. So like I don't know. It's an interesting show.
Yeah, I'll say I was able to watch the first 2 episodes before the podcast of this, and I'm kind of on the same track as you are. I think it's incredibly well written and like really, really smart and charming without being like Marvel tier like quipping.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a really smart. I mean, I really loved Homeland. Like I watched that entire show, and I know like a lot of people thought it got way too like bonkers towards the end, but I really loved that show all the way through. And this is it's not as like operator core as Homeland is, but it's very, very interesting. And the only thing I'm kind of like getting bored of already after the first 2 episodes are they're sort of in their insistence on the plot point that like she's just one of the boys, like she has her husband sniff her armpits and she's frumpy and she doesn't want to wear that dress that her stylist wants. It's like, okay, let's cool it on that plot point for a bit, because it's like the show is like constantly like, look at how frumpy she is and look at how like disheveled she is, and it's just it's a bit much. But
because you wouldn't be able to get to where she is if you didn't have some social grace and elegance. That's a requirement. You can't just be a BO spewing battle axe. But it's better than I thought it was going to be, because I looked at this and I was like, oh, this is a mom show, but something I can get out of it. You kind of had some quick hits for us to round out the watch list this week. So what's going on with this cartoon about Superman and his friends, which I've heard compared to a shonen series, or not shonen, whatever the boy love series are in anime. Like that group is really into this.
Yeah, this is basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a new Adult Swim show that is, what if Superman, but anime essentially. And it's the look of an anime, but the feel of a 90s Saturday morning cartoon kind of. And so I really, there's 2 episodes out right now. It is a weekly show, and I really like what they're doing so far. It's as much a Jimmy Olsen and a Lois Lane show as it is a Superman show, and it's kind of about their friendship and then eventual, romance between Lois Lane and Clark Kent, and they haven't really gotten there yet. Lois Lane is still a bit Sundra. Is that how you say that?
Yes.
To Sundra or
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
And
God,
so
that's so funny.
yeah, this is definitely like an anime, like 100%. I mean, characters when they get embarrassed, they get the little like red splotches on their cheeks, and then when they get like awkward, their eyes turn into X's. So it's definitely like all like full blown anime, and I really like it so far. It's really fun, and the villains that they're introducing are really interesting. Chris Parnell, who plays Jerry on Rick and Morty, is going to show up as Deathstroke of all.
That's inspired. I really like that. I love him as a voice actor too. That works.
Yeah, he's great. And so yeah, I'm gonna probably keep watching, and it's on HBO Max also, other than being on Adult Swim. So, and then yeah, my final thing here is just kind of a quick mention that I have been watching Secret Invasion sort of behind the scenes, and I am now gonna drop this show because this show is awful. And this is a big deal for me because I have seen every MCU thing out there. Like
Dedicated.
every movie, every TV show, every movie, every short film, every cartoon. I've seen every bit of the MCU there is. And this is the first thing I'm going to drop. And it is because this show is so bland and boring, and it's not even fun. It's not even bad in a fun way. It's just like there. It's neither good nor bad, essentially. And Samuel L. Jackson is now at the age where, talking about actors getting old again here. Samuel L. Jackson is now at the age where he is no longer cosplaying the character he played in the Sunset Limited. He is actually that age now, and it's just sad watching him, like rickety old Sam Jackson, try and like do these like Nick Fury action scenes. I don't know, it's pretty awful, and so I'm gonna drop it, and I recommend everybody else to drop it too.
Is that's really funny because this entry has been placed and disappeared from the dock for a couple weeks. Because, like, again, I just assumed, it just wasn't worth it. It just must not have been worth it. And that's kind of the scuttlebutt I've been hearing. It's very unfortunate that this is where the MCU seems to have gone to die, is with taking these, what should be, like, even at the very least, inside the park home runs, and somehow just, like, turning them into, like, the worst game of pickle you've ever seen on a baseball field, where they're just constantly running back and forth between being safe and out. Nothing they make it seems to know if it is a success or isn't. But if you're doing better than The Flash, I guess it must be doing somewhat well, but who's watching this? From what I've heard, it's just kind of just bogged down by bullshit. Like with like a lot of intersectional, like, ideological stuff. How does that serve a story like Secret Invasion?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing like the comic either, and that's really starting to annoy me with MCU stuff, where they use the name of really famous, really good comic arcs to like get people in the door, and then once you're in the door, it's nothing like the comic.
Like the flashbacks to Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Well, so much for that. Now it's, time to talk about other kinds of, cuckoldry and financial domination in the film Sanctuary. This movie is coming to us from a director named Zachary Wigan, or like Wigan, who's, it doesn't have a lot of credits to his name. I didn't really have any, bearings on the guy, but he has my attention now. Like, in an era of OnlyFans and seeking arrangements, this kind of thing is pretty common, where people, cultivate and set up these, arrangements that would probably make the Marquis de Sade blush a little bit and be like, oh God, are you serious? You're going to do that with that? I don't know about that. I'm the guy that eats shit recreationally. But in this instance, the whole staging of it's a two-hander between two capable actors with a script that just shreds and surprises. But it's hard to really I guess say how successful certain elements are when you get down to it, because I almost wanted it to go further. I wanted there to be something truly reprehensible going on in this movie. But despite, my expectations kind of rising and falling as I was watching it, this movie fucking works. And there isn't a lot about it that I really will gripe about. The choices that are made are, I would say, appropriate, but there's aspects of this heightened reality going on where you're just confounded, where you're like, wait, what? Like, is this whole thing part of the performance between these two people? Like, how many layers in are we? It's like, it's BDSM meets Inception. At what point are we in the dream? At what point are we in the fantasy? When is something actually real happening? And that's what creates this very uncomfortable, this like doom-filled little romp that is bouncy and lively, but at the same time, you're just kind of left going like, what the fuck? I don't know how I should feel about any of this. Maybe they should just kill each other and we could move on with our lives. All the way up to the final frame, this movie really just kind of holds you, and it makes you, as the audience member, feel like you are trapped in a dynamic very similar to these two characters. You're trapped, you aren't in control, but you have to submit to it nonetheless. What did you think of it, Matt?
Yeah, this is a hard movie to review because it's the type of movie that it doesn't give you all the answers. What it gives you are breadcrumbs, and it demands your utmost attention in trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And then even then, it still leaves it open to interpretation. And I feel like a person's enjoyment of this film, it has much to do with how they interpret what is happening, because depending on what you think is happening, you could say, oh my God, this film is reprehensible and I hate both these people and this was not enjoyable at all. Or you could say, well, wow, that was kind of twisted and I liked, the twist at the end, and I liked, it took me on a ride. Or you could say like, what a interesting romantic comedy. And,
exactly.
there's so many different ways you can take this movie, and how you choose to take it, I think, has in large part to deal with how you're going to feel about it at the end. And I'm sure we'll get into more of that, but on a filmmaking level, I mean, this is a big showcase of two really, really good actors. And it's just, there's some interesting creative decisions with the camera work and the like color scheme of the movie, as far as the hotel room and these weird little interstitials where it's, to separate the scenes of like just sort of flowing colors that transition you from scene to scene. And so, yeah, I thought it was really, really enjoyable, but I liked my interpretation of what was happening. And so, yeah, of course, I thought it was enjoyable.
Exactly. Yeah, because by the end, that is kind of the conclusion that you're given. This cavalcade of horror, is actually just the sweetest 21st century love story we've ever seen. Because it's two people really seeing each other and finding each other and realizing, hey, fuck the world. We know how to be happy, in doing it. And yeah, there's a lot you can mine, this is a movie that's going to generate a lot of essays, a lot of, little, theories about what is being said by it all. But without us just, spewing it ourselves, it's pretty obvious what this movie is saying, as much as it's trying to be ambiguous about what is happening. The symbolism and the allegory is blatant throughout it.
What do you think? I'm just curious. I want to see if we're different. But
the one track you can take with this is that it's the feminist one, because it's a critical one of what would be called sex positive feminism. Because I guess really what this movie really boils down to me, is the question of who is actually exploiting whom in these very, kind of like untraditional, modern forms of, coupling, if you were going to call it that. Because like what is at its most basic, what was marriage supposed to be? A transaction, like how, like, ownership or possession, of another person, and then it evolved into something more akin to partnerships. But now, like, our generation is so cynical about marriage, and a lot of these Gen Z girls are just like so jaded and, by all of it. And so are the men. So like, how do you wind up together? And he's obviously older than her. She's probably in her early 20s. And she was one of those girls caught up in OnlyFans during the pandemic, and it totally transformed her life. She went from having, like a job to being a dominatrix with a broker and a fiance who couldn't handle it, if you believe what she's saying when she says that. And if you're buying into like that version of the character, it's I don't know, there's a lot about this that like seems like, hey ladies, this isn't enough. What are you getting out of this? Like, oh, you're getting a $35,000 watch and a walk of shame, and a pat on the head and sent down an elevator ride. No, like, you deserve more than that. Like, and women should be aspiring to more than that. But what I think is a little short-sighted about this movie is that they think the only way that a woman can become a CEO of a company is by, doing emotional and financial domination on a billionaire. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I think is a little short-sighted. But that's sure. I think it's kind of just being like, hey girls, you should want more, because there are some decrepit fucking men out there who will give it to you just because they're so broken. So find the most broke fuck out there. Because when she saw him, he shone like a light to her. And when she was working him, it made her feel actualized and real for the first time in her life. So yeah, it's like, maybe like the thing that actualizes you is what this character finds. But I don't know, I think it's trying to say, use what you need to do to get what you need, but always be sure to know what you're worth. And maybe it's $4 million instead of a $35,000 watch.
Sure. Yeah. Before we go any further, I think it is important to maybe for us to state, I think I kind of understand what you thought, but yeah, just to state like what exactly we thought was going on, because I feel like there's three ways you can take this movie. There's either everything was real, and this is a story about a dominatrix essentially taking advantage of like a situation and spinning it for her benefit, and for this loser guy to just like play along with it, and then pathetically just like go to the logical conclusion of his neuroses, which is just to give everything he has to this woman. Yeah, and become her sex slave. Yeah, and like, and so that's one way. And then the like inverse of that is everything is fake, and that is sort of how I chose to take it, because what I think is happening here is this is a couple. These two people are, whether they're married, whether they're dating, they are a couple. And this is what they do to go blow off steam. And there's multiple, I wouldn't call them Easter eggs, but there's little hints at this throughout the movie that this is the case. And these hints are everything from like little looks that she gives him, like when he's on the phone talking to his mom and she like chews him out for yelling at her. She gives Margot, or is it Margot, or what is her name? Qualley.
Margaret
Qualley. Yeah, she gives these looks, of sort of adoration, of endearment when he's doing stuff like that. And so there are these multiple moments throughout the film where, whether it's what a person is saying or the looks they're giving, the sort of the shared sort of when she's talking about getting pregnant, or like she's gonna make him get her pregnant, there's this sort of shared bittersweetness between them, because she earlier in the movie states that she can't have kids, and it's just stuff like that. But then I think obviously the biggest case for them being a couple is the very, very end of the film, in which and what I think is happening there is that's the only time in the film where he says, "I love you." That's literally the last lines of the movie is "I love you." And I feel like that is their actual safe word.
Yes.
And then they kiss. They finally, kiss. They have a passionate kiss. And I feel like that is them reverting back to their status as a couple. Is they kiss in the elevator doors open up into the real world, and they are a couple again. They are normal people again. And so that's how I chose to take it. And then the third way you could take the movie is, some of it's real and some of it's not. And there are multiple points in the movie where you could say, like, okay, this is real. This is where the realness stops. This is where the fakeness starts. This is where the fakeness stops. This is where it's just, there's so many permutations if you choose to go that route of some of it's real, some of it's not. So yeah, but anyways, that's how I chose to take it.
And, I think you're kind of, correct in that assessment, because there was a moment very early on, and I think it's when he's on the phone and, and he's talking to like somebody, and she's, chewing him out, and she's like, oh, like does she know, like, does she know who she's marrying, with like a smirk on her face, because they're married. Mm-hmm. They're the couple, or they're about to be married. She knows exactly who she's marrying in that, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like there are a lot of things like that where there's like double meaning, or there's like something revealing about what is said, or like even just body language and a look. And when they embrace at the end, it's genuine. It does look like real love. And you can interpret it as the way where like the plan that they're talking about is like legitimately what they're gonna do, like this fucked up thing, or it's just them taking their game to its fullest logical conclusion and just being caught up in the euphoria of their shared degeneracy. It could just be that too. It's a meaty film for only being 90 minutes, but it's a stage play. Those very colorful transitions are, function basically as the lights down, like a scene reset. So I would almost love to see this as a play. It would be very, very fun. Honestly, it would get very maybe trying, during some of the more like violent and dark sequences, but it would feel very vital and alive. I don't know. I think someone should do that. Someone should stage this. It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it could totally work. I mean, this is in that sort of line of thinking. This is a movie that is pretty much set in two locations, a hotel suite and then the hallway outside that hotel suite. And in that way, it never, I'm really surprised, because even though it is only 90 minutes, something like this could easily get so repetitive and boring and feel long. But I think the director did a really good job at keeping it all very, pretty varied as far as what's going on. He didn't hit on the same beats over and over, and he kept the actual look of the film interesting, with these, just the look of the hotel room. It's not like any hotel suite you would ever see in real life. It's way too nice. It's way too like interestingly decorated. And then also, like you had alluded to, the camera work, because the one thing I noticed was that at the very beginning, when they start their session and she's still sort of on the script, the camera is very static and it's not moving, it's not doing anything. And then once she goes off script, then the steady cam gets brought into the movie. Then the camera is becoming a character in the scene where it's moving with the characters. It's looking at the script as if it were a person. And it's just doing all this wild shit. Like in the trailer here, you see that part where he's looking for the hidden camera. Yeah, and the camera is like going upside down and like moving with him. And so yeah, that's one thing I noticed. But Yeah,
Did you
anything you
notice?
wanted to say about that?
Did you notice the part during the disco dance sequence when he's tearing the room apart looking for the camera, and Quali looks down the fucking barrel of the fucking camera
Yeah, like directly at it, as if
like
it's
a music
there.
video.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
bizarre. Yeah, but yeah. So credit to them for making this a lot more interesting. It could have been pretty boring and stayed despite its subject matter. So like and the score really helps. Ariel Marks did a pretty good job of keeping it interesting because it would go from like playful, like sardonic, sort of sounding stuff to like really creepy shit, and you'd do it very subtly, flowing from one to the other. Yeah, and you even like the two other people who are like cast in this movie in like the hallway, they had very memorable faces for no reason at all. Mostly just because they were the only other faces we get in this. But what do you make of Quali as a executive producer on this? How does that happen? Did she pick this script out and be like, "Hey, I'm your new starlet. This is the movie I want to do"?
yeah. Maybe. I mean, it's. I guess I didn't notice that, but yeah, that is interesting because executive producer. That title implies that she put up money for this movie because
Oh,
that's what separates executive producers from regular producers. Is executive is people who put up money for the film, and so yeah, totally. I mean, she probably shelled out. She's a pretty well-off working actress, I believe, and so she was probably like, yeah, I'll put 20 grand towards your
her
movie or
her mom
something.
is Andy McDowell. She's
Yeah,
not hurting for money at
yeah.
all.
But yeah, what do you think? While we're talking about her, let's talk about the performances a bit. I mean, Christopher Abbott, he's really good at playing that sort of puppy dog-eyed, pathetic man. He always has been. And I just enjoy the parts of this movie where he's trying to turn into a wolf, but he's just too pathetic. He's trying to be the big man, and yeah, he's just like way too pathetic to do that. And it really works for the character because, that's how that character is too, where you can tell he wants to be like the alpha, but he's just like too lame to be. And but then she is interesting because I've seen a lot of scuttlebutt as far as people thinking that she is miscast because she is either too young for this role or her performance is too like uneven where she gets pretty bonkers with this. And I mean, she has the Margaret Qualley, she has those crazy eyes. There's a reason why she was cast as the drifter in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood who offers Brad Pitt a blowjob 2 minutes after meeting him. So she has those crazy eyes. And yeah, what do you think of that critique?
I think it's a little unfair just because of my interpretation of the character. In that, yeah, because like no matter how you interpret it, I don't really find that what she does is really inappropriate. Because yeah, she's one of the if she's a Gen Zer who's already fucked in the head because of life, and then has been fucked in the head because she turned to being a dominatrix to make a living. I don't know. I am totally viewing it just through that lens. Just because it's just the common thing that society really doesn't want to like admit might be a little fucked up, and might be harmful, is just like how many young women are falling into this, like sex work. I know you want to be sex positive, everybody. This is my little moralism I'll throw in there, and it makes sense to me that she would be pretty broken, to a degree, and a little bipolar and schizophrenic, and also just to be so like single-mindedly committed to the task at hand and being good at it. Like there's something weird about the girl boss mindset that a lot of young people have these days, and it really pushes them to be to like, oh yeah, I know everything. I am the one who's so competent about running, like I know how to do a manager buyout merger, a board buyout. She knows all the lingo, because she's watched Andrew Tate videos or some shit. You know what I mean? There's just something happening there that feels true, and I think it just might be because people don't want to admit, how many young people out there probably are like this. to a degree.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and there's probably a lot of very powerful older men who found themselves compromised in situations like this. I'm not saying that they were being victimized, because they're asking for it. They're deserving it. If you are bringing someone in to degenerate you, like, because like he is Kendall Roy baby girl vibes, but like if Death Grips had been doing the soundtrack, if he was a Death Grips fan, this is what he would be like.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, as far as like, if a person wants to interpret this movie as everything's real and like this is actually happening and this guy is, you know, sort of being, it's so dark, like it's so, and that's why I choose not to believe that, because it's so like fucked up that this would actually happen. But then again, it's, you know, it totally could. I don't think, I mean, it gets a little fantastical towards the end when he's like, I'm going to make you CEO. She would never be allowed, you know, whatever board exists behind this hotel chain would never let that happen.
Mommy would never allow it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but that being said, a lot of the events of the film that lead up to that point totally could happen, because, you know, the thing that I was reminded of, when, you know, looking at the movie through that lens, are these like real life cases where like a college age girl will like say that she was sexually assaulted, and then like 5 years later she'll be like, tee, that never happened, and then like the guy's in jail, you know, and like he's like serving, his like entire life has been ruined, and he's like serving like a 10-year jail sentence or something like that. That's sort of the what I was thinking of when I was like, oh my god, if this is, you know, what if this is all real? What if this is actually happening? And it's just so fucked. Like, it is, but yeah, like and that's why the better way to interpret, like you've kind of alluded to, you have to see what is the actual happy story here, that it's all performance and these people actually love each other, and this is just something goofy that they do. Yeah.
Oh
yes.
But yeah, it's in the eye of the beholder. This is the kind of I think it's safe to say we recommend this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely worthwhile. It has some brings up interesting questions about the modern day. And yeah, before we break off from the review, I just wanted to you know, get more conspiracy theory about the movie.
Oh, okay.
Who is Alexander?
Oh, yeah.
I want to know who you think Alexander is. The person who keeps calling her through I think it happens a couple times throughout the movie. There's only one time where she actually talks to the person on the phone, but yeah, who is Alexander?
Well, if you believe what she says about herself, he's her ex, or like a fiance. Because when she actually calls him, she's like, stop crying. You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds like some or it's another client that she's dropped who like can't let go of her. You know, that's another possibility. Because she talked about how, or because she quit. You know, like she became single-mindedly focused on trying to break him down to get what she wanted. So that was my, because doesn't she flat out say that he was her fiance?
She does, yeah. She says it's the fiance, but you know, then again, who knows if she's telling the truth? Because one theory that I really like is that it is their child, the real life couple that is doing this role play. It's their actual real life child, and she's just making all this shit up. And you know, when she actually talks to him on the phone, like you said, the only thing that she says, you know, she never acknowledges the fact that it is a grown man that she's talking to. Yeah, she picks up the phone and she says, stop crying, I can't tell what you're saying because you're crying. And then that's pretty much it, you know, and then she like hangs up the phone. And so my theory was it's their kid, and she's just making up all this shit about a fiance and stuff to play into the role play, essentially.
Oh my god, that's twisted. Oh Jesus.
Yeah, it'd be so
that's good.
So fucked. Yeah,
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
But yeah, that's really all I had as far as other, you know, stuff I wanted to touch on. But yes, to go back to what you were saying before, I would totally recommend this. And it's worth it's available right now as a rental, a digital rental, and totally worth the like $6 or whatever it was.
Because people have been talking about this movie since 2022. I think it was at like the Toronto Film Festival or something like that. So yeah, we get it now. We get it almost a year later. What do we got for Mentionables this week?
Yeah, so mine this week is a comic book I picked up this past Wednesday. It is called Swan Songs. And this is comes from W. Maxwell Prince, who is one of my favorite writers out there right now. He is probably most known for Ice Cream Man, his ongoing series. His series are very interesting. He has about 5 or 6 independent series that he's done. He's only ever done one superhero comic, and it was a one shot about it was a Marvel Zombies one shot, and then he's never done any other superhero stuff, which is a very interesting career trajectory for modern day comic writers, because you almost always find that to be successful they have to dip their toes into the superhero genre at least occasionally, and this guy really hasn't all that much. And what he does are these mini series that are like these messed up morality tales, and this latest one, Swan Songs, is about the theme of it. It's going to be 6 issues, and the theme of it is the end of things. And it's an anthology series, so it's different every issue. And whether it's the end of the world, the end of a relationship, the end of a pint of ice cream, the end of a marriage, whatever, And so he's fantastic. He's always fantastic, and he just is like a well of ideas, this guy. And for this first issue, he got Martin Simmons, who did Department of Truth, who I know that you know. And very, very good art in this, and fantastic first issue. I'm definitely going to be picking this up, and I would encourage anybody to go out there, seek out Ice Cream Man. Ice Cream Man is
what's that about?
I think that Ice Cream Man, it's kind of a similar thing where it's sort of it's an anthology series about these morality tales about that are generally like very like Black Mirror-esque, but they're not always depressing. They're sometimes they're uplifting, and the thing that ties them together is there's this omnipresent Ice Cream Man that shows up in every issue that is essentially a god in this world. He is like a godlike being who like influences these people. And go and seek that one out if you want, just like a trade paperback or something. I think there's like 20 something issues of that one.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, very, very good.
I'd never heard of the guy, but now I'm interested. Because at work I sometimes put in earbuds and just do my thing. And what I've been listening to in preparation of Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, the boys finally did it. They've been talking about it for like as long as I've been listening to them, but they finally I think they're done with the Manhattan Project series, and it is wonderful. They get a little lost in some historical ignorance when talking about Japan and World War II. They should probably listen to Dan Carlin's Supernova in the East episode to get educated. I know some people were a little griping with him about that, but from what most of it, it's awesome. He gives you all of the bullet points. He gives you all the characters. You get Henry Zabrowski doing his thing, and you got good old Ben high on tinctures. Also just really killing it with the comedy. But Marcus Parks continues to deliver as well. I haven't listened to a lot of what they've done lately, but I was glad I checked back in with the boys for this one because it's a banger. Definitely check it out. And that
I've been listening. Oh, I was just gonna say I've been listening to that too, and it's gonna be a good primer for Oppenheimer, and it's just interesting when they do this. When Last Podcast on the Left does more historical stuff, and they're actually like giving a lot more useful information than they are being a comedy podcast.
Yeah,
and so I would co-sign that mentionable.
Yeah, because it made me want to reread the Manhattan Project's comic, And it just kind of like made me mad that series just kind of died on the vine, because what's the name of that writer again? What's his name?
Yeah, who did that? That wasn't Remender, was it?
No.
Or Hickman?
It was Hickman. It was Hickman.
Hickman.
That
yeah,
motherfucker
Hickman.
never finishes anything.
Yeah.
So, but I guess at the very least, this is a plug to go listen to that. Go pick out, the modern Prometheus, to be ready to watch that movie. But next week, we're going to be doing the long-awaited first entry in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. And if you want to have some fun, go back and rewatch our retrospective on the Mission Impossible series, so you're all set and ready to know what to expect from what might be the first in a long succession of final Mission Impossible films from that son of a bitch. But thank you very much for watching, everyone, and have a good week.
Yep. See ya.